Okay, just like we had the print writer class from reading data from a file, or writing data to a file, we can also read data from a file. So what we want to look at for reading data from a file is we're going to be using something called the file class and also the scanner class in conjunction with the file class. And as you recall, the scanner class was used to read input from the keyboard, but we can also use it to read input from a file. So instead of passing system.in to the scanner class constructor, we're going to pass a reference to the file object that we're going to create to the scanner class constructor. So if you look on the slide here, the first statement creates an instance of the file class. So we have right here file class, and we're going to call the object, an object is an instance of a class, my file, and equals new file, and we're going to pass, instead of passing, what was it, system.in, we're going to pass the file name. In this case it's customers.txt. Once we do that, the file customers.txt passed to the constructor. This will create a file object that represents the file customers.t.txt. So this next statement, scanner input file, passes a reference to the file object as an argument to the scanner class construction. So in this case, we're going to say, okay, now instead of getting input from a keyboard, instead of saying system.in, we're going to get input from my file, and we're going to use input file as the object we created to do that. So this creates a scanner object that uses this file customers.txt as its source for input. So here we go, reading data from a file. For an example, first off, we're going to create, as we always did using the scanner class, an object called keyboard when you're doing system.in, so we know we're going to get it from the keyboard. And it's going to say enter the file name. So the user is going to put in the file name, and it's going to be stored in file name here, lowercase. Then we're going to create the file object, and we're going to say, okay, new file. This is a lowercase, so it's not the same thing as this word file. New file, and whatever file name we put in there, we're going to create a file object of it. Whoops. Let me go back to that. There we go. And then we're going to say, okay, input file, new scanner, and here's our file name, and using the scanner class. And so that is going to be our object we're going to create from. So the lines above create an instance of the scanner class to read from the keyboard, prompt the user for a file name, get the file name from the user, create an instance of the file class to represent the file, and then create an instance of the scanner class that reads from the file. So once we create the instance of the scanner class to read from the file, we'll use the same methods that we always use to read from the keyboard. Next line, next int, next double, whatever. So here we have showing names. So we're going to create a object called names.txt. That's the file we're interested in. We're going to use the scanner class and create the object input file. So we're going to read a line from the file. So we're going to say string str equals input file dot next line. So that will read the next line from the file. And just like when we open a file for writing to a file, we want to close the file when we're done reading from the file. So here we go, input file dot close. So when a file is open for reading, a special value known as a read position is internally maintained for the file. A file's read position marks the location of the next item that we read from the file. When a file is open, the read position is set to the first item in the file. As subsequent items are read, the internal read position is advanced through the file. And again, when finished reading from the file, we want to close the file. Just like when we're writing to a file, reading from a file can also throw an exception. So we put a throws IO exception clause in the header of the method. And one of the reasons IO exception could be thrown is an exception can be thrown if the file's not found. So if we can't find the file that they're looking for, it might throw an IO exception. So we want to make sure that the throws IO exceptions in the header of the file that's reading. So many times a program must read a file without knowing the number of items in the file. The scanner class has a method named hasNext that can be used to determine whether the file has more data that can be read. The hasNext method would be called before any other method to read from the file. If there is more data, hasNext returns true. If the end of the file has been reached, hasNext returns false. So if we look at that, we're reading to the end of the file, while input file, which is the object we created, hasNext, while it's true, we're going to read. And we're reading in a string according to this. And we're going to put it in str, and then we're going to print out str. So long as there's something to read, we're going to read it in. This is going to be true, and we're going to print it out. Once there's no more to be read, input file.hasNext will be false. We'll jump out to this, and we'll close the file. So just to show you an example, here's the file read demo program. And in this program, again, we're going to have a keyboard and a scanner. So we're going to read from the keyboard. We're going to enter the file name. We're going to get the file name. Then we're going to create a file object with the file name. First, we'll see if file exists. There is within the file class, there is a file exists method. If this is true, then we will create a scanner input, scanner class input file using that file name that the user types in. And while it has next, we're going to read in the next line or put it under a line quote, which is going to be a string. I'm going to print it out. And so long as it has next, it's going to keep doing this. Once it's done, it's going to close the file, and it's going to, that's it. Now if the file does not exist, it's going to jump down to here and say system out println error, the file name does not exist in this directory. Again, I have the java.util.scanner. I need it for the scanner class I'm using. And I also have the java.io.star. I'm importing both of those, and that's for the file directory or file class I'm using. Now let's look just real quick where I have this. This is the file read demo. So I go to my NetBeans projects, file read demo, there it is. And we go into SRC, here's my file read demo. Let's see, where did I put the, how about under build? Yep. Okay, well here it is right here, quotations.txt. I thought I had another place too. And the quotation is, imagination is more important than knowledge, and that's from Albert Einstein. It has 3 lines, so it should be able to read 3 lines and print those out. So let's go back to the program. So let's run it. Enter the file name, and the file name was quotations.txt, and there it is. Imagination is more important than knowledge, Albert Einstein. Let's see what happens if I type something that's not correct. Let's type in quote.txt. Well, that's not the name of the file. Error, the file quote does not exist in this directory. And right here, it said this came back false. Since this was false, we jump to the else. Error, the file quote.txt does not exist in this directory. So that's how you read from files. Thank you.